All right, we're live. We made it to one of my favorite days of the week, Sunday. Sunday fun day. That's what great people say. Let me make sure we're good on all platforms. All right. So first and foremost, happy Sunday, everybody. Hopefully it's been a wonderful week. You've been safe. Georgia has experienced hurricane weather this past week, so we've been tucked away, literally rain 40 days and 40 nights. Like, no, I'm just playing. But it felt like it. It was raining all week. It was crazy. But rain has a way of giving us things that we didn't need, or not didn't need, but, giving us things that we needed, like water. So, yes, we thank God for the rain. We thank God for this day. Takeaways with Tay. We're back for another great episode. You guys are really in for a treat today because today's topic is going to be covering a topic that I think is relevant to a lot of people, a lot of millennials, a lot of young adults that are looking to start their careers or maybe they might need to be pivoting from one career to the next or whatever the case may be. So, I'm excited to share with you today's topic. Now, before we get into today's topic, just like every other week, there's always so much going on during the week. There's always so much news, so many headlines that I come across. And one particular one that I came across was about why am I drawing a blank? Marcellus Williams. Let me make sure I'm saying his name right. Yeah, Marcellus Williams. He was executed this past week, which is unfortunate. And this story really struck a nerve when I came across it, when I heard about it. One, because he's Black. Two, he has been on death row for, he was convicted for murdering a reporter back in 1998. Her name is Felicia. I forget her last name, but her first name is Felicia. And what's disturbing about this case is that he has, there was significant evidence that he may have not been the killer. And his execution had been postponed, appealed, all those things twice, because basically they were saying that they might have convicted the wrong person for this crime. And along with all the other details of the case, so the family of the victim, which is the reporter that was murdered, they didn't want they didn't want anyone to be executed. They didn't even want him to get executed. The prosecution team ended up going back on their statements. Basically, like everybody, the defense, the prosecution, the governor back at around the time that the murder happened, they all were like, he might not actually be the killer. So they were doing different things, diving into the case a little bit more and trying to really make sure that they had the right evidence, the witnesses' testimonies and all that were substantial enough to move forward with the execution. Now, recently, there's been a new governor, and this is in the state of Missouri. So for anyone who's not familiar with what I'm talking about, you can look this up. In the state of Missouri, his name is Marcellus Williams. The governor of Missouri went ahead and went through with the execution, even though the prosecuting team, the defense team, the family of the victim, even though they all were against it, and there were multiple people petitioning against the execution. Online was going crazy. It's made multiple headlines because the thing about execution is you can't come back from that. It's like once it's done, it's done. So when you do it, you have to know there has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. Like you have to have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. You have to make sure and ensure that you have the right person. And so the fact that there was ambiguity around them having the right person and then they ended up going through with this is disheartening. It's very disturbing, and it raises a lot of questions about the judicial system that we're in. The court system, the integrity of a lot of the system and things like that. And, I'm no expert on the case. I know enough information about, the defense, the prosecuting team. But if the prosecution team, this is something that never happens. If the prosecution team, the one that that at first convicted him of the crime is now saying, hold up, we might have the wrong person. Like, to me, that's a cause for, okay, well, maybe we should halt this and not move forward with this. But the governor, for whatever reason, decided to move forward with the execution, and he basically overrided all of the appeals, all of the council that were called upon to double check the facts and things like that. And that to me is disturbing, because it means that a black life doesn't matter. To me, it says that specifically a black man's life doesn't matter, or like even like, they're looking at his criminal history. They're like, oh, he has a criminal history and all these things, and they're holding those things against him. And it just to me, it speaks to a system that needs reform, needs change. And so I shed light on this story because, for one, it's disheartening, and I think not enough people know about it. Despite all the headlines and all the chatter and all those, I still feel like there's not enough people, maybe my age, that know that this happened. And it's even more important for us to vote. Like, this is one of those reasons why we need to vote, why we need to be voting for who our governors are, who our mayors are. And I'm not just talking about voting for the president. Like, they do a great job of marketing the presidential campaign, but the ones that are actually that hit home closer to us are the mayors, the governors, the superintendents, the DAs, all those different positions that they're making decisions every day right now that affects people that look like me, you, and everyone else. So yeah, I wanted to shed light on that situation. You guys can look it up in your own time and really dive into it. Like I said, it's very unfortunate. Even the family's the victim of the family of the victim didn't even want him to be executed. So it's like, if the victim's family didn't want him to be executed, and they're the ones who are actually mourning the loss, like, why would you still follow through with an execution? And I get it, it's the judicial system. We live in a system of, all these different, abide by rules and laws and things like that. But still, I just feel like we need to throw away the death penalty, because I just feel like that's inhumane. And why are we still talking about death penalty in 2024? 1, 2, the whole system needs to just be thrown away and recalibrated. But okay, so now that we got that out of the way, today's topic is going to be related to jobs and visions and aspirations that we have for ourselves, that we tend to put off because of needing to survive, needing to put food on the table, and make a living, because life is not free. As much as it is a great thing, it's not free. And you need, like, money is up there with oxygen when it comes to life. Like, if you don't have money, you arguably don't have shelter, food, resources. Like, there's so much that comes with not having money. So money is up there with oxygen, in my opinion. But the thing about, when you do get a job, and let's say you put aside your aspirations, your visions, and your goals to go ahead and to have this money and to have this security, then there's like a part of you that begins to kind of like die away, because now you're focused on making a living and things like that. So your dreams and all that get put to the side. It gets put on hold, because right now what makes sense, what's making money, is your job, your 9 to 5, etc. So I read a book. It's called Never Get a Real Job, and it's by Scott Gerber. He is a writer, CEO, co-founder of the Community Company. He's a special advisor to Forbes Media, and then the founder of the Young Entrepreneur Council. So he does a lot of work with entrepreneurship, believes heavily in entrepreneurship. He's an entrepreneur himself, CEO, and he wrote this book. So he gives some really good insights into, the title is Never Get a Real Job, but he gives real, I should say, thought-provoking insights on why he's taking this stance. Also, I found this book interesting because I'm an entrepreneur myself, and so I've always like dibbled and dabbed in between, should I get a job, should I not? What are the pros? What are the cons? What am I sacrificing if I do? What am I sacrificing if I don't? And that's always been a dilemma for me because, like I said, there's the security of having a job, but then there's the freedom of being able, or not the freedom and the satisfaction of doing something that you actually want to do, right? Or that your heart is drawn to it and you're putting everything that you have into that. So I just feel like this was a really great topic to touch on for entrepreneurs that may be, or aspiring entrepreneurs who are currently, trying to make it work and things like that. Because it's not an easy task. And even though, people advocate for entrepreneurship so much, I don't feel like it's for everybody. I feel like there's a certain type of person, there's a certain type of hustle, there's a certain type of tenacity that you have to have in order to be successful at being an entrepreneur. And some people just don't have it, and that's okay. So the first takeaway from reading this book that I got was that job security as we know it is fleeting. I don't think that that's a not obvious thing. If you take a look at the economy right now, what's being reported as far as like jobs are concerned, there is a high supply of graduates. We'll just call them graduates. There's a high supply of graduates and a low demand for jobs. High supply for graduates, low demand for jobs. If anyone knows anything about economics, the whole economy is based upon supply and demand, right? Inflation is based upon supply and demand. The value of something is based upon supply and demand. If there are more people that are demanding it than there is supply, the price of that goes up. If there is more supply than there is demand, the price of that goes down. So if you have more people that have college degrees, but there are less jobs, then now you have more people you're forced into entrepreneurship because there's nothing else that you can do, literally, or you have to settle for a job that might not necessarily pay as much. You might not get the benefits. You might have to do something that you don't want to do because there's so much competition. And so that's what from when Scott Gerber is talking about job security, it's like, especially now too with AI, the typical jobs that you would go to college, get a degree for, and then go to and do that job, like your job is now, I don't want to say it's being replaced by AI, but trust and believe that in the next 5-10 years, these companies are trying to figure out ways to replace you with a robot because the robot is going to be more efficient and it's going to save them more money. That's another story for another day. But there are certain jobs that, I feel like you can't replace, like maybe a police officer. There's a certain amount of judgment, I should say, there's a certain amount of social skills that you need that a robot just can't provide. Teacher, for now, I think they have pretty good job security, but I do feel like that might change in the coming years. And I would say also doctors, I say for now, but they are figuring out ways to perform surgery with robots. So keep that in mind. All this to say, like, not to be fear mongering or anything like that, but just to shed light on the fact that the economy is changing. We're moving into an AI revolution where it's not that the AI is going to take your job, but there's going to be a lot more jobs that require for you to either manipulate AI or be able to create it. Or let's say there's a lot of need for cybersecurity because we're moving into such a technological economy. And so like there's jobs that, like, anything dealing with tech, really, I feel like you can't go wrong with right now. But let's say that you're not interested in tech. You've never been interested in tech and you don't feel like that's your thing. You got to find other options and other ways to make money. And a lot of times it's not about how much work you put into something or, getting good grades and all that. A lot of times that's not even the case. It's more so about what is your experience and who do you know? So, and you can get fired at any moment. let's not even, we can talk about that. But in the state of Georgia, you can get fired and no one has to give you any explanation why. You can get fired, you can get dropped, you can get a disability, and then they fire you because of the disability, even though it's against the law. It happens. And what's your plan? You know, like, what do you do when stuff like that happens? Do you go get another job? Or can you go get another job? If you have a disability, if you have something that is affecting you where now you can't even work the way that you used to work, like, you know, what is the outcome? So you can get fired at any moment. And also, just like how you could get fired at any moment, your business, let's say you're an entrepreneur, your business could experience a setback at any moment, and you got to be ready for that. So it's almost like neither route is 100% safe, right? But you have to pick your poison. You just, essentially, that's what it is. It's like, would you rather go this route and have this, or would you rather go this route and have that? That's essentially what it is. And I personally don't feel like there's anything wrong with having a 9-to-5. I think that there is a lot of security in it. There's a lot of stability in it. There's a lot of, I guess you say perceived stability, because like I said, something could happen and then boom. But, I mean, it serves its purpose. It serves its purpose when it needs to. And so I think that not everybody's aspirational. Not everybody wants to be a millionaire. Not everybody wants to be, well, maybe people do want to be a millionaire. They just don't want to put in the work. But not everybody wants to have a business that does well. And not everybody has a calling or feels the call or feels the need to create something in this world. And that's okay. You need consumers. Everybody can't be producers. And so that's totally okay with me. But yeah, you really just got to pick your poison. Job security is fleeting. It would be nice if there were people in your family in positions to be able to, let's say, employ you right after college, give you your first hand of experience, or even after high school, you know, so that you can get your foot in the door. Whatever those relationships you might have, you should definitely be able to definitely take advantage of them. Takeaway number 2 is that life will always throw curveballs. So, kind of touching on takeaway number 1, life is not fair. And there's always going to be something that happens, no matter if you're planning for a business or if you're planning for just a job. There's always going to be unexpected things that happen that you have to be able to be prepared for, or essentially have some type of, you don't want it to take you out, right? Like, you don't want something to happen and then there's nothing that you can do to bounce back from this situation. And in order to kind of prepare for those curveballs, you really have to know what you want. And I think I would even go further to know why you want it. Like, you have to know what you want, why you want it, and get your objectives and priorities straight. The book says you'll never obtain genuine success if you don't have your priorities and your objectives straight. And that's super important, because I don't want to skip past that. Your objectives and your priorities. A lot of times we only focus on one part of our life, right? We might have our objectives and our priorities straight with relationships, right? Or we might have our objectives and our priorities straight with just our job. Or we might have our objectives and our priorities straight with just our family. But it's across the board. So I believe that whatever you do in one space is the same way that's the same way that you'll show up in the other spaces. When it says have your objectives and your priorities straight, it's talking about, what do you want? Like, what do you really want in life? And then you have to align all of the other things with that. So you have to align the family. What does your family setting look like because of that? What are the dynamics of your house look like because of that? What is your financial statement need to be because of that objective, or because of that standard that you set for yourself? Like, all these things have to align, and in order to get them to align, it takes time. Like, you have to sit down and really ask yourself what it is that you want to accomplish, and then you have to separate it into little chunks and pieces that you can attack one at a time. And that's the part of entrepreneurship and just obtaining any goal that a lot of people miss, is because they don't sit down and take the time out to actually figure out like how all these pieces are gonna come together. Like we're just going out here on a whim and expecting for things to just magically fall into place. And that's not something that you shouldn't leave your goals and your aspirations up to fate. You know, like you should have a plan, you should have a clear-cut vision for how you're going to enact that plan. And I think that also just touches into like knowing how powerful you are, knowing how if you set an intention and no matter what comes your way, you stay steadfast with that. You learn how to pivot. You learn how to be resilient. Like eventually that intention is going to come to pass. You just got to stick with it, be disciplined and all that. So I also want to give an example too, because recently, like I'm always reading into things, looking into things. And so this past week, Pinky Cole, so if you guys don't know who Pinky Cole is, she's the owner of Slutty Vegan here in Atlanta. And she's running, I don't know, she's not a billionaire, but she might be close to it. But her and her husband are running very successful businesses. And recently, she just posted on Instagram, she reposted a video of a business owner, a Black woman who owns, it's called Just Move Supplements. So it's a Black woman. I believe she's in Atlanta too. And she sells vegan-based supplements. So, and she's been doing this for some time now, since before the pandemic, from what I understand. And recently she posted on Instagram, she was crying, she was in tears, and she was basically up against the fact of having to maybe close her business after all these years of dedication, putting into something, sewing into something, investing into something. And even though the business has been very successful, like people are loving the products, they've been helping people swear by the products, right? So she has a good consumer base, all that. Like, it's not like she's not selling, but what happened was she was very transparent in the post. She got into a financial crunch because during the pandemic, when people weren't buying as much, there was a lot of businesses went out of business. And in particular, she had employees that were working for her. And even though their demand wasn't as high during the pandemic, she still kept them employees on. So she achieved a lot of debt because of that. She was very vocal about how she didn't want to like turn these employees down because they all had families and they were banking on, the money from the company to keep them, to sustain them. And so that's one of the decisions as a business owner, as a CEO, that is very difficult to make, because it's like, that these people are depending upon you. And it's like, even if the business is struggling, if the business is not in the place to sustain, those business wise, and this is why business and doing favors for people doesn't necessarily align. Business wise, the best business decision would have been, we could argue, to let the people go, right? So that the business doesn't go under, because now you see the result of keeping the people, and then now you're in debt, and now you're facing the reality of having to close your doors. So by you not letting people go and making other people have to go figure out whatever she decided to stay open, and then now she's facing having to close her doors. But anyways, being the type of person that she is, she kept her doors open. She still kept her employees, and come fast forward, 4 years later, they're so in debt that they basically are faced with the reality that they have to close. So Pinky Cole comes into the scenario because Pinky essentially got on Instagram. People were tagging, and this is the power of group economics. People were tagging Pinky on the post, Pinky, Tabitha Brown, because they're all into this vegan world. And they were tagging her, asking her to like, please help, please shed light on this situation. And essentially within 48 hours, they were able to they made $168,000. $168,000 in less than 48 hours. And I believe their goal is like 250,000 in order for them to be out of the red and be able to still do business. But $168,000 in less than 24 hours is crazy. And that to me just shows that, one, you always get a curveball, like with business, with life. Curveballs will come, and how you manage them is going to say everything, you know, about your brand, about you. But also, I think it speaks to the power of group economics, and how when there are multiple people that pull their money together, great things can happen. And like when it comes to entrepreneurship, that's super, super inspiring. It's a super inspiring story, because it just lets you know that, like, by her doing I guess you could say the moral decision, it might not have been the best decision for business, in my opinion, but it was a moral decision of, you know, I don't want these people who are dependent upon me to have to go out and fend for themselves. Like, COVID was a very difficult time for a lot of people, especially if you lost family members. So having to add on top of the uncertainty of COVID and the health concerns that were related to COVID, now you're adding financial strains onto that. And so that's the thing about being a business owner, is like you're kind of like putting on this cape, and you're taking on not just your struggles and what's going on, you know, financially or whatever in your household, but now you're taking on other people when you have employees. And essentially the difference between a small business owner and, let's say, a Nike, right, is that Nike has the infrastructure and all the people that are working for them. They have the revenue that's coming in. Now that's arguable, because Nike hasn't been doing so well. They recently fired their CEO because their CEO was not doing a good job. But as you can see, like, businesses go out of business because they're not profitable. The whole reason for a business to be in business is to be profitable, to continue to make money, to continue to grow, to continue to reach new heights financially. So the last part last takeaway from this book that I got was that entrepreneurship is your greatest chance at finding satisfaction in life. Now, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, that not everybody is made to be an entrepreneur. Sometimes you're made to be the assistant. Sometimes you're made to be the COO. Sometimes you're made to be the employee of the entrepreneur. But not everybody is made to be the entrepreneur. And I say that because the journey of an entrepreneur is just from my personal experience, it's been very lonely. It's been very hard. And it's been very, how do I explain this? It really brings you to face who you are, because a lot of the struggles that you experience in entrepreneurship are really struggles that you have with yourself sometimes. And sometimes, like, if you don't know what those things are, then you can be holding yourself back and not even know it. But there's a certain amount of humility and discipline that comes with it. And not everyone can necessarily relate. And that's why I said it's lonely, because a lot of people are okay and content, and this is nothing against them, but they're okay and content with working for someone else because it's easier. And or maybe it just makes more sense to them. To each his own. But to those who do go out and try to build something from the ground up, there's not a lot of people who are doing that are successful. Right? There's not a lot of businesses out here, especially like Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses that are out here doing that. Oftentimes there's a lack of resources. There's a lack of guidance, lack of mentorship, not even knowing. Sometimes you could have a really great product, really great idea, but you just don't know. There's missing pieces like accounting, legal, marketing, advertising, all those different things. And so it's very lonely and it's very tough trying to figure it out by yourself. But it requires discipline. And I also wanted to kind of put this into perspective too, is that, like, when you're talking about building wealth in America, there's only three ways. You either invest in a profitable business, you either create a profitable business, or you invest in real estate. There's no other way to become rich in America. Look at all the millionaires, all the billionaires, they got their money working for them. And also, another thing too, because I used to be afraid to like invest, especially in like the stock market and things like that. But if you really think about it, your money's already being invested in the stock market. It's already being invested. If you work for someone with benefits, there's a 401k, because there are people that are employed to take your money that you're setting aside for your 401k and invest it so that in the next 20-30 years you have a return, and you also have money for your retirement. So if you don't invest your money, somebody's going to take your money and invest it for you. So you might as well invest your money. Also, same thing with banks. Like the money that you put inside of a bank for a checking and savings account, it's not just sitting there, just there. Like the banks are taking that money. Once you deposit that money into a bank account, the banks are taking that money and they're investing it. So all these other people are investing your money. Why not invest your money? Whether it be in real estate, whether it be in stocks, whether it be in yourself and your own business. Like invest. And that's not to say just invest blindly. Like definitely educate yourself on the best investment for you, because not every investment is a great investment for you. Only you know that. You know your financials, you know what you're willing to invest, what you can invest. You don't want to invest anything that you're going to lose, or that you're afraid to lose, I should say. But you can mitigate risk, if you just educate yourself, understand what you're getting yourself into, and really execute, be disciplined about the investment, because other than that, the only other choice is to stay employed. You'll never be a millionaire staying employed, because they're going to take a certain amount of taxes. Your cap is going to be however many hours you can work a week. So if you can't work 40 hours a week for whatever reason, your money's going to be affected by that. Like you don't want those factors to be the end all be all when it comes to your wealth, right? So that's why you have entrepreneurship. That's why you have people investing in different things, so that their money can work for them. So yeah, this is super controversial, because some people are like, get a 9-to-5, etc. So I'm not saying don't get a 9-to-5, and I don't think there's anything wrong with a 9-to-5. You need a 9-to-5. A lot of times you need a 9-to-5 to fund the business goals and plans that you have. But if you are working a 9-to-5 right now, and you have aspirations and dreams for doing something else in life, I would say start thinking about how you can begin to move and pivot out of your 9-to-5 into your dream job that you want, that's going to give you that fulfillment that you're actually looking for, that fulfillment and that satisfaction. Like you don't have to have all the answers today, but figure out those next steps that you need, so that you can start to position yourself to be in that self-sufficient position. And just know that there's levels to it. Like and try to seek guidance. That's the biggest thing. If you could take away nothing, like if you are trying to do this 9-to-5 thing, please seek guidance. Like get a counselor, get a mentor, or somebody that's in your industry or maybe adjacent to your industry that you can learn from, because it's not an easy task, and it can be very discouraging. It is very discouraging when you're doing it by yourself. So yes, those are my 2 cents. And if you're an entrepreneur, keep doing what you do. But also, like, if you need to take a break, like, know that it's okay to take a break. And that if you need to go ahead and get a job for the time being, like, it is what it is. Just make sure you stay steadfast and hold fast to your vision, what you have for your life, so that you don't get derailed. Remember your why, and know that there is no right or wrong way to a situation. Like, it's about taking into consideration all these factors of your life and making the best decision for you. So, thank you guys for tuning in. Another takeaways with Tay, great episode. I am thinking about diving into the book Roots, chapter by chapter. I haven't fully decided. I think I might. I just don't want to start reading it and then like get bored. But I don't think I will. I've heard it's a great book. So, yeah. We will end this here. Thank you guys for tuning in, and catch me back again next Sunday for another great episode of Takeaways with Tay. Peace.